Okay, welcome back everyone to Where Are You Going Next, a travel podcast for travelers by travelers. And today I have another exciting guest, the lovely Claudia. So could you introduce yourself, please, Claudia?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. I am Claudia from PerfectlyClaudia, and I am or hopefully, am a good travel blogger and influencer on Instagram.
Oh, don't be so modest. You're definitely a good one. Some
Thank you.
great pictures, and you have a blog as well, don't you?
I do, yes. I blog about all the travels I go on. Sometimes I talk about the lead up to the travel. Because I live in Cornwall in England, it takes a good 24 hours to get anywhere in the world. So that's part of the story. And then I blog about where I've been, what I've done whilst I'm there, and any tales that arise whilst I'm traveling.
Nice, and yeah, you should definitely go check it out. There's some great content on there, and honestly, I really like the style of your pictures on Instagram. I really like the aesthetic you've gone for. It looks really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it takes a bit of honing in to get the editing how you like it, but after trial and error, you eventually work down to something that you really love.
Yeah, no, then you can tell that the hard work has paid off. And Cornwall, yeah, God, where's your nearest airport? That's quite far
Um,
away from everything, isn't it?
it is. We've got one in Newquay, which is about half an hour away, but it costs an extra £300 to fly from there to anywhere.
Whoa, that's
Yeah, so I always
what?
end up getting a coach to London, which takes about 9 hours.
Really?
Then I fly from London, yeah.
God, that's I mean, definitely worth the £300 saving, but that
Yeah.
is, I can see what you're saying now. You're saying it takes you 24 hours to go anywhere.
It really does. It seems to take even longer to get home as well, which I think it always does wherever you go. But yeah, it's definitely a travel rather than a holiday.
Yeah, I can imagine. So cool. When did you start traveling? Is traveling something that you've grown up with, or something you started doing more when you got older?
A bit of both, really. We're an Italian family living obviously in England. So when I was younger, even at baby stage, my parents used to go back over every now and again. But we took a big family trip when I was 10, and we drove from England through France, Switzerland, Italy, Sicily, and back, visiting family along the way. And that really spurred on the love for travel. And then from 2011, that was my first big solo trip. And from there, I've traveled solo with almost 99% of the time ever since.
Wow, I'm definitely jealous. That sounds like an awesome trip to do. You say you were 10 when you did that really long road trip.
Yeah, 10 years old. My sister was 4 years younger, and most of the time we would sleep, her in the boot of the car and me on the back seat with the seats put down. So yeah, it was quite a journey.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. I love that the creativity there to put the back seats down, just sleep in the car. um, and so you say you've been solo traveling since 2011.
Yes, yeah, my first trip was with a massive backpack, almost the same size as myself, and I went to Thailand for just under 2 months.
Nice. So it sounds like you've got quite a lot of experience solo traveling then.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't want to rule out going with friends, but I personally find it's a preference for me. It just gives you so much more, flexibility with where you want to go, what you want to see, and especially shooting content for Instagram. I really feel guilty when I go with people and I have to say, "Oh, do you mind if I take another picture?" I just feel so bad for them having to wait all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've been traveling with some photographers before I started to get into it, and they were like, "Oh, can we just stop again?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah,
uh,
every pretty thing you need to take a
yeah,
picture of. Yeah, they really
but
get into it.
yeah, but now as I'm coming more into it myself, I can appreciate more. But it's good to stop a lot and uh, take the opportunity when you're in front of really beautiful scenery and buildings and places.
Yeah, I think it kind of helps you to stop and take it in as well. I think when you're more of a tourist, you kind of just go to all the tourist attractions and you're lumbered in with so many other people. But when you go to find, or what I do is I try and find the hidden gems. And I know quite a lot of probably more male photographers tend to do the same thing. And you end up finding random spots for sunrise, sunset, and all throughout the day. And it's really nice to just stop and take a couple of moments whilst you're shooting to take it all in.
Yeah, and I love that you said about looking for hidden gems. One thing I like to do is walk off the beaten track a little bit, and and avoid those tourist hotspots. I feel like that gives you more of a sense of what the place is actually like, kind of seeing
Yeah.
more of the local culture up front. Is that something that you also relate to?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I love seeing the hotspots anyway, just to tick them off the list and say that I've seen them. And some are really beautiful, but like you say, it's for me, I love getting involved in the culture. I mean, I have to be kind of careful depending where I am being solo, but I do love to just, you know, experience it, try the foods, and live it whilst I'm there for that short period of time. I don't want to just get there and be like, oh, this was nice, and not having experienced anything of the culture.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as you were saying, you have to be a bit more careful. How do you feel? How have you felt as a female solo traveler? Any female, any of the girls listening? If you're thinking, what advice would you, maybe, yeah, advice and caution would you give to them if they're thinking about solo traveling by
Yeah,
themselves?
I know a lot of girls are really concerned about doing it, but if you're sensible in your approach, like for example, I go to countries where I know it's fairly safe for solo travelers and for women especially. I mostly go, or so far I've gone around Europe, around Asia, and I felt totally safe wandering around during the day and the evenings. Usually I'll check just in case there's any news reports about the place before I book them. I ended up going to Tunisia, not alone, I was with somebody at the time, but the year after there was that shooting on the beach, on the same beach that I'd been to. So
Mm,
it's always worth checking any news reports first before you book a place. But also, I tend to get back to my accommodation before or just around nightfall after sunset if I've been out shooting. I just prefer the comfort of being somewhere safe when it gets a bit darker.
yeah, no, I love that answer. I hope any of the girls, any of the women listening, yeah, I hope you can feel more reassured about solo trips and take the plunge after
Yeah,
listening to
it's
that.
so fulfilling to do. You honestly,
Definitely.
it's like if you go out for dinner by yourself anywhere in the world, that can be so scary the first time doing it, but then once you get used to it, you really love the idea of doing it.
Yeah, that's something I struggled to get over at first. The whole, yeah, going to a restaurant by yourself, especially in places that are more busy and touristy, because you just feel yeah, like you stick out a bit more being on your own. But
Yeah, so true.
I've definitely grown to enjoy it quite a lot actually. So I'm definitely glad you said that.
Yeah, it can be so fun depending on who you run into as well. I stayed in Slovenia a couple, I think it's last year, and I stayed in a hostel, which I don't normally do. Normally I go for cheap budget accommodation, but the hostel was so relaxed. I thought I'd stay there. Walked into a pizza place, and a couple of the guys from the hostel were there, and they straight away invited me over to their table, and we got on so well for the rest of the trip. It was great.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the beauty of hostels. I've met some amazing people there. But you were saying you don't normally go for hostels.
No, I think it's another safety thing about being a female solo traveler. Hostels, you can obviously be put in a room, mixed dormitories with several other people, and sometimes that, for me, that's a safety concern depending on where I'm going. So I would rather have a locked room for myself most of the time.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. Definitely. But do you ever think that it's harder to meet people because of that when you're solo traveling?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. I often get a lot of people come up to me whilst I'm just sat somewhere waiting for, I don't know, something magical to happen. And they always ask me if I'm there by myself. And then that strikes up a conversation. But usually I'm pretty happy in my own company anyway, so I don't tend to go out looking for other people to spend time with.
Oh, really? Okay. Um,
Yeah.
no, I definitely appreciate hearing that point of view because There's definitely been some trips I've done and I've thought, yeah, I'm quite happy being on my own right now, as you say. But there's other times I've definitely been like, okay, I'd love to meet someone and explore with them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think it depends where you are as well. Like, for example, if I went back to Asia, I'd love to go somewhere like Bali. I would love to go with friends, especially those who shoot photography for Instagram for whatever purpose, and then it would be like a nice group trip almost. Whereas more European countries, I'm happy to just grab a bag and go by myself.
Yeah, I think, is that something you think about then when if you think shorter trips, kind of shorter distance, you think, okay, I'm more happy to do that by myself, but going the longer distance, you'd rather be with people you know?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that could be something of it. I did Thailand by myself, but I went the first week I was there, I did a tour company thing where everybody was together and we all stayed in rooms together. But that was obviously my first ever solo trip as well, so that bit of comfort really helped. But yeah, I mean, it could be. I'd love to go anywhere really with some people that also love to shoot, but more often than not, I tend to be quite happy in picking up a bag and going solo.
And I like that you mentioned tour companies. I'm very intrigued by these because I haven't tried them myself, but I have heard they're good. So I'd like to hear your point of view doing it solo as well, because I haven't heard of many people doing them solo.
Yeah, so I've done a couple actually. I've tried a couple of different companies now, and I've really the Thailand one was a bit hit and miss, I will say. Not because of the company itself, but it just depends on who's on the trip with you. It can really make or break the trip. But I did another one which was 2 weeks long through Scandinavia, and it was the best decision I'd ever made. I've got friends from that trip that I'll have for life, and they were all solo travelers as well.
Oh no, that's really good to hear. I'm glad that they're great opportunities to meet people as well. Um, so it's interesting that there were so many of those people on that Scandinavian trip because I don't know, I just always have the impression that there's a lot of friends groups on on these tour company trips. So it's kind of harder if you're on your own to kind of meet people.
I
But it's
think you're together almost 24 hours a day anyway. So everybody, even if there were some groups of three, there were a couple of couples, but everybody starts talking. You're all sat there together at dinner every night. Everybody's sharing rooms with each other. You're going on day trips together. So it's a really good thing if you want to go solo, but you're not comfortable in being totally alone. You will absolutely make friends on a trip, so long as the people are right, which unfortunately you can't always guarantee, but I've been quite happy so far.
okay. That's really good to hear. I'm even more intrigued now. I think I'm definitely gonna have to try at
They're
some point.
definitely good. Yeah, they're helpful if you know want to be with other people. If you're a little bit worried about going totally alone, but I think I've done so many of them now that I am happy to go off by myself. It just gives you that extra confidence as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And sounds like it's a good place to start for anyone who wants to try solo traveling for the first time. So
Yeah,
no,
it really is. Yeah.
definitely glad that we've talked about this. Um, and earlier when we were talking about when you were giving advice to any of the ladies listening, you were I kind of you kind of laid it out that you do a lot of research before you travel. So I just want to kind of to explore more and how you actually plan trips. What's your process? Is there any specific way booking like companies you use? uh I want to provide value for everyone listening.
Yeah, so I generally always have an idea of where I want to go, and I think Instagram is quite a good visual place to help you come up with those ideas. I mean, you'll see lots of popular places constantly being shown. I follow lots of different photographers as well as influencers, so it's nice to have a good array of places that maybe you wouldn't have thought of before. And then from there, I'll do a bit of more research, probably on Instagram, to see what's around the area that I want to go to. When I went to Norway for the first time, I had a look. Obviously, there was an itinerary set out for me on that occasion, but I had a look at all the places that we were going to, and everything with the tour company is already organized and booked for you. You just pay the overall fee. It can be quite expensive. So now that I organize my own travel, it's a bit cheaper here and there. And I generally look at apps like Lucky Trip is a good one. You can pick your own budget and it will come up with an array of trips that you can go on. But I don't tend to book through them. I'll book separately and it saves you a bit of budget as well. But yeah, I generally look at things like TripAdvisor, anywhere where there's reviews and you can see pictures of places, and I'll discuss it with other travel friends. Just anything that's open to you where you can already see what's there and the accommodation that you could potentially book are really good online places to start.
I know, thanks for that answer. I've never heard of Lucky Trip before, so I'll definitely have to check them out.
Yeah, they're
So
quite good. Is you put in any budget or maximum budget for yourself, and it'll come up with an array of places. Usually they offer combinations of flights and hotels, so you can just have a look at the top destinations that you would like to go to, but they're not always the more unusual places, which is what I prefer.
oh, okay. It definitely sound like a good one to check out. I'll definitely be looking at that when I'm planning my next trip. So thank you very much for suggesting that.
No problem.
And to TripAdvisor, I feel
Yeah.
like I don't think I use TripAdvisor as much as I should, and I'm just wondering how. Yeah, do you just use it for looking at local attractions, or do you also use it for looking for restaurants as well and places to stay?
Yeah, I mostly use it for accommodation because it's going to be honest pictures and reviews from people that have already stayed there. Um, and there was a hostel that I booked with some friends on a return trip to Norway, and all the reviews on TripAdvisor were don't go there. People were banging the doors down, but you obviously don't see that when you're going to book it. So I always check TripAdvisor for accommodation before I put any money anywhere.
Ah, that's yeah, I hadn't really used them for that before. I definitely I usually look at the app I'm booking on. So if I'm looking on like booking.com or Hostel World, I look on the reviews there, but I'll make sure to check TripAdvisor as well. It's always good
Yeah,
to
it's
get,
definitely a good one.
yeah, always good to get more reviews and get a better idea of what's going on. Um, cool. So next, I want to ask, what's your kind of top tips? If I was asked, like, give your two top travel tips, what would they be?
Okay, so I don't think I've ever been asked this before.
Good, good. That's
Um,
what I like. Keep you on your toes.
Personally, for me, I would say that number one, just go. Like, don't worry about people not being able to go with you, otherwise, you will never see that place. Just book it and go. Obviously, be sensible about your booking, but just take the plunge. And the second one would be to, I know we've already touched on it, but to enjoy all the aspects of that trip. Don't go just as a tourist. Go and enjoy the experience, the culture, the food, try new things. I mean, if your friend wants to stay at the hotel for the rest of the day, don't worry about it. Go to the beach or wherever, go to the lake. Just try new experiences. You don't necessarily have to mingle with people, but you can try things whilst you're there. And it would be such a shame to go home and think, oh, I really wish I'd gone to that one temple, or I really wish I'd gone and tried that one super famous like drinks bar or something. Yeah, just do it whilst you're there.
Yeah, I love that answer. Just go. That's the thing. I've had that battle in my head before. I've been like kind of worrying about booking it, worrying about going on my own, and then I just kind of go, I'm just going to do it, and I just click book, and I've had some amazing experiences and trips from doing that. So I love that advice, and I love what you were saying about, don't worry if other people that you're with are saying, oh, I don't want to go to this, because just get out there and do as much as you can. Definitely, there's definitely no one gets home and thinks, oh, I'm so glad I didn't go here. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of it, where I've been on a trip with a friend who I've lost touch with now, but we went on a trip together and she didn't want to do anything. And it was awful. And you spend your hard-earned money to be there and you want to experience all, the things around you, but you're just sat in that hotel room and it's the most infuriating thing. But then, I mean, if you go with more than one friend, you've got the opportunity that at least one person in that group will want to do something with you. Or if you go solo, you have none of those worries.
Exactly. Another application for solo travel. I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned food. I always like to ask this. Is food something that's really important to you when you travel?
I mean, I like to eat, but yeah, I'm not so bothered. I mean, so long as there's something that I'm happy to eat, and I'll try most things. I've eaten off the street food markets in Thailand, so I'm pretty not fussy. And I mean, so long as I can try something that's local, I generally try and aim for that. Places can be really expensive, like Scandinavia and Iceland in particular, are super pricey. So you may not be able to try an array of local foods there. Um, but yeah, as long as you get one dish in there somewhere.
Mm. Yeah, I think trying food is really important to kind of learning about more about the culture while you're there. So yeah, I would always definitely recommend people to at least try one local dish while they're there. But as you say, it can be quite expensive. So even if it's just one, at least you kind of made the effort.
Yeah, at least you've ticked the box. Like I love trying different things. Like growing up Italian, we have mostly had Italian foods, and seeing your friends look at that Italian food and going, "What's that?" You kind of think, well, why don't you just try it? So
Yeah.
it's a shame to have that available to you whilst you're in a country and you just turn it all down and go for pizza all the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can mix and match what you eat, but I always love to try and get something local in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of anyone questioning Italian food. Italian food is
Yeah,
amazing. So
it's crazy. I had it constantly growing up. Everybody was like, "What are you eating?" I was like, "Oh, sorry," but yeah. So many people I think, are afraid of foods that they don't understand. I've taken a couple of cooking classes in Thailand as well, like, and it's just amazing the ingredients that they use. You can go and, if you've gone solo to like an Airbnb where you've got a kitchen, you can go to a market somewhere and buy all the produce. I mean, you don't have to, but it's a really nice experience to also add on to the culture and the food side of things too.
definitely. And I like that you just said, yeah, go to a market and use the local ingredients. That's something I definitely want to try because you can get such good ingredients that you can't get in your home country when
Oh,
you're abroad.
honestly, it's so true. I picked up, I don't know how I found it in England. I think it must have been a small I went to an Asian supermarket and found Thai basil, which I've never been able to find anywhere in England since coming back from Thailand. And just the smell of it takes you back straight away to those early morning food markets.
Definitely. Yeah, I can imagine. That's definitely the beauty and the power of food when traveling.
Definitely.
100%. So now I want to get into quite a deep question. How
Okay.
is how has travel changed your life, would you say?
Um, I would say first and foremost, it's definitely given me some serious confidence. And it's also really shown me how strong of a person I can be when I need to be. I was quite ill on my first trip to Scandinavia. I ended up with kidney stones halfway in the
Ooh,
trip.
I'm sorry to
Yeah,
hear that.
I was very ill. I was rolling around on the bathroom floor. I was vomiting. I was in and out of consciousness. Um, and luckily, I was on that trip that I booked with the company, and they really took care of me. I was in a night clinic for just a few hours. The healthcare over there is amazing, by the way. They'll see you and sort you out within like half an hour. But yeah, I mean, I was in pain for the rest of the trip, and at one point, I thought, should I go home early? But I didn't, and I kept going, and that is something that I will never forget now.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you shared that story actually, because I I've known of a couple of people who do kind of worry about that kind of thing when going abroad. I know it rarely happens, but
Yeah.
there's always someone who worries. So I'm glad that you shared that experience and that it's not it's not so bad. I mean, I know as you said, Scandinavian healthcare is super good, and it might not be as good in other places, but um, your account of what happened makes it sound like it was manageable.
Yeah, I think on that occasion, I was super fortunate to be with other people, because it was such a quick thing that happened and they really took care of me. But it's the only one issue I've ever had, thankfully, touch wood, whilst traveling solo, um, that, medically that I've needed attention. But I've been on trips with family who have, hurt themselves very minorly or been bitten by insects or something. We've had to find a small clinic. Everything's doable. If travel insurance, I would say everybody should get, no matter,
Mm.
it's a lifesaver. It saved me hundreds of pounds in Norway. Um, but when you've got that, it's easy enough to be seen and to have everything dealt with.
Yeah, definitely get travel insurance. As you said. Um, yeah, cool. So next, I want to ask you. You already listed some amazing places that you've been, but what would you say the best place you've been is?
Uh, it's definitely a toss up between Iceland and Slovenia. They are the most incredible countries to go to. Honestly, I've seen the Northern Lights in Iceland, on a Christmas Eve in the snow. It was the best experience. But then
Nice.
Slovenia, it's in Europe, and it has all the kind of mountain and lake views that you would find in Canada. So it's a nice closer to home experience.
Yeah, I really want to go to Slovenia. I've heard from a couple people. It's like a real hidden gem.
It is, yeah. I think the accommodation now that more people are going is slightly going up in price, but you can still find lots of cheaper spots. I've got in my room that I'm is in front of me right now. I bought a map, of Lake Jasna from Slovenia. It was my favorite place in the whole area that I went to, and it's the waters in Slovenia are crystal clear. Some of them you aren't allowed to swim in or fish in, and they preserve them that way. So yeah, it's a real amazing country, and everybody's so friendly. And again, they've got their own foods that you can try, and it's just one beautiful country.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it in the pictures. It's definitely one I'm adding to my list.
Yeah, definitely. I would absolutely recommend it.
Great. So yeah, no, thanks for that suggestion. But so you have clearly had a very extensive experience traveling, and you've already given some great snippets of advice here and there. But uh, what's kind of some advice you would give to someone just starting out traveling? If someone came to you tomorrow and was like, "I'm going to go on my first trip," what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, so I would say to really look at the place that you want to go to. If you've got a budget, try and stick to it. It doesn't always happen, but yeah, if you've already got places planned out to where you're going to go, try and look for accommodation before you get there. Sometimes it's super easy to find accommodation whilst you're there, but it's always safer, especially as a solo traveler, to have all of that booked already. And also always get travel insurance. Always.
Yeah, definitely, especially after uh, your your trip to was it Norway where you had the
Norway,
kidney
yeah,
stones? Yeah,
absolutely.
no, yeah, definitely get travel insurance.
But
um,
yeah, especially with everything going on now with,
yeah,
COVID and things, travel insurance will, I sound like I'm an ambassador for travel insurance, but it'll help with any flight cancellations. And I've had so many friends in jams because they haven't taken it out, and that is always it's always at the top of the list that I recommend when somebody asks me about travel.
yeah, definitely. And then moving on, as you mentioned, the kind of unavoidable topic right now, COVID,
Yeah.
coronavirus. It's everywhere. It doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. So, what are your kind of thoughts and feelings towards travel in, during this whole thing? And because obviously now traveling's opening up again. So, how are you feeling?
My thoughts on it is that my sofa is very comfortable. I'm not confident at all right now in traveling anywhere. I won't get on a plane for anything at the moment, and that's just personal preference. But I've got obviously family in Italy who express what's happening over there, and obviously they had quite a traumatic time with it when it was at its most in Italy. And you still have to have documentation now to leave the house. You have to wear masks and gloves constantly when you're going into places, which I think some countries are handling it really well. I don't think England is. But yeah,
Yeah.
I personally, I'm still a bit nervous about travel right now.
Oh, that's interesting. And I'm sure many other people listening uh, are in kind of the same mindset as you. And you mentioned that you really don't feel comfortable flying. So, but
Yeah.
would you consider other forms of travel, maybe trains, or uh, do you drive? Do you have a car? Would you consider driving somewhere or getting a coach?
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't get a coach, because they are always absolutely packed. I've heard that some trains are seating you apart from each other. Um, so if I had to, then I would do that. But predominantly, I would drive. But then I would probably stay in England. But right now, I'm quite happy with just getting on with other things at home, working from home. And when travel maybe becomes a bit safer next year, then I might start to reconsider it then.
But is it not in the back of your mind though that this is just going to be around for a while, a couple of
Forever.
years,
Yeah.
and that you know, you either take the risk and travel now, or you might have to wait up to 3, 4, 5 years in the future. Is that something that you've kind of thought about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we're, and I assume we still will be in the height of it next year, then at that point I'll have to weigh up the would I rather see a country and just take the plunge. Obviously, I would have the mask, possibly the gloves for public places, and I would make sure that I'm safe for myself. But places like I would love to visit Korea, but you have to legally do a 2-week quarantine when you get there. So other countries are implementing that here and there as well. Europe isn't as much, but yeah, by the time you get there, you've spent your 2 weeks in quarantine. So it's kind of a toss up of where you're going to go versus what precautions you take for yourself, I guess.
Definitely, definitely. And uh, following on from what you just said, would you be more inclined to do Europe first, just to kind of test the waters a bit before you branch out any further?
Possibly. I mean, I've always got the option of, it's probably quite a fortunate option of being able to visit family in Italy or Sicily. So, but then there's always the worry, if you went from quite a public airport and public flights, we all know how jam-packed they can be. Do I then take something unknowingly to the family? So, I probably would stick to solo travel and you stay away from people. And then when I came home, I would self quarantine for 2 weeks before I see my own family here. So yeah, I mean, travel is a huge passion of mine, but then safety, you need to consider that as well.
Definitely, definitely. Um, but I mean, I think it can be done safely, as you say, if you wear the mask and
Yeah.
make sure you're clean. It keeps the hygiene rules and the regulations. And is that something that you're also thinking about? Obviously, all different countries have different regulations from their governments. Different, not only with different countries having different quarantine rules, but the actual like, do you need to wear a mask in a shop, or is that something that you'll look at when you start traveling again, to when you're deciding where to go?
I mean, it's always nice to know what the precautions are before you get there, because imagine landing in a country, and then they tell you have to quarantine for 2 weeks and you didn't realize. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely something I would look at for any country I go to now for the next couple of years. But I will always, just as a personal thing, I will probably always wear a mask when I'm in public places and always keep up the extra hand washing. I mean, I wash my hands plenty of times a day anyway before this all happened, but I'm doing it even more now, and I would definitely do that anywhere I go going forward.
Yeah, and as you know, that's a great answer. Um, just I agree. I think you should always wear a mask in public places, especially when it's not your country. You don't want to be that
Yeah,
person that brings it somewhere
no.
else. Um,
It's always that one person from England as well, isn't it? So you don't want to
oh
be that
no,
person.
I'm waiting for that headline. Random, yeah, some idiot from England not obeying the rules and getting up on someone's grill and giving us all a horrible reputation. I promise we're not all that bad.
No, it's really not all like that. But yeah, I mean, you kind of, I guess it's for anything really. You have to be respectful of any other country, just like you would for their religion, their culture. This is a serious pandemic that's affecting the world, so you want to be respectful of their rules. I mean, it's there to keep you safe and them safe at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I think, and I mean, you could tell me otherwise, but I think at a certain point we just need to kind of just start doing things again, obviously as safely as possible. Wear masks, and as I said, wash your hands. But I think and all the job losses in the travel industry as well. Something I think we've got to think about. People not traveling is going to cause so many people to lose their job. Are you thinking about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've found it's had quite a detrimental effect on my um, business. So I can completely sympathise with anybody in the travel industry. It's been really difficult, and airlines, big airlines, I don't really sympathise with because I feel like they've got a huge budget and they could stay afloat here and there if they really needed to sort their budget out. But I do sympathise with the staff, the smaller people, the tour companies, everybody that really is suffering from it. But I think a lot of travellers who I know are just now starting to really, book things because so many people had holidays, flights, hotels, everything got cancelled. People have only now just started to get refunds from it, and that was March, April. So there's definitely a bit of a backlog on it, but people are slowly thinking, right, it's maybe time to look at booking things for the end of this year or for 2021. And so I think slowly things should hopefully start to improve for the travel industry.
Yeah, I think I've seen that as well. More people starting to book. I think much more for 21, as you were saying. I think it's going to be a slow kind of time for travel still this year, which is obviously 100% understandable. But and you were not mentioning airlines. I know you said you didn't really feel comfortable flying, but are you looking at the airlines at the moment, and are you looking for the ones that are dealing with this better than others? So they're saying we will, leave the middle seat free so we can distance people, and we are being really good on refunds. Is that kind of something you're looking at, and is that going to stick in your mind when you do start traveling again and think, okay, this airline were horrible during the pandemic, I'm not going to book with them again?
Um, I think yes and no. Um, I mean, it's like the whole thing where, where Weatherspoons mistreated their staff. Yeah, I probably wouldn't consider going back to there anytime soon, the way they handled things. But, certain airlines, it's mostly what I've seen is the middleman, for example, booking agents that people are having the issues with. So I don't personally use booking agents anyway, and I would book my flights or accommodation directly. So, but anybody I know who's booked something, their issue has been with the middle person rather than the airline themselves. But airlines taking things into consideration, like leaving the middle seat free, are things that I probably would be more comfortable with booking.
Yeah, and I like what you were saying about booking agents there. That's definitely a good point. Do you think that that's going to kind of cascade further, and that a lot of people are going to completely change how they're booking as a result of this?
Yeah, I think people who are interested in travel will probably boycott an awful lot of booking agents now and book directly. But then for example, you know, British culture for travel is book through a booking agent, go on a cheap flight to Spain. I think those kinds of people who like to holiday probably, unless they've had an issue with a certain booking agency, wouldn't consider it and would book anyway through them. But more avid travelers who are noticing all of this happening, who follow lots of booking agencies and are seeing the problems that other people are having, probably would avoid them going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as you were saying, there's kind of people who go on holidays and, you know, actual travelers. And I think this is going to more distinctly define that line between holidayers and travelers.
Yeah,
Uh,
so
yeah, and, you know, I think, as you know, we were saying about the disrespectful English person, which would probably be more likely to be, you know, a holiday
yeah,
as opposed to a traveler. Because I think, you know, being a traveler and you're seeing so many different people, you're seeing a lot of people that don't speak the same language as you, who don't look like you, and it really, I think, helps you to have such a make yourself such a more accepting, open, understanding person, and really helps to break down prejudice and stereotypes, which we've talked on this podcast about before. Is that something that you also think, you also kind of relate to?
yeah, I totally agree. Like, I am more than happy to, in fact, I probably look for more other races. I don't know, is racist the right word? But other cultures to mingle with. I think being an Italian person, having grown up in England, has been quite a difficult journey. Even in this remote part of England, I'm not. I mean, I grew up in Bristol. We moved to Cornwall, but it's been difficult, and so I've always looked for. I mean, my friends are British. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love my friends dearly, but I always love to meet somebody from another place. I just feel like there's more understanding from them as well. And, like, you know, other travelers, like you say, who go to other countries rather than immediate Europe, like Spain or France, they experience more cultures, and they interact more with other people. So they do sympathize more with, you know, the amount of people that there are in the world and the different people that you interact with. So yeah, I definitely sympathize with that completely.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I love to meet people from all over the world and different places, and that's. I mean, I live in London at the moment, and that's why I love London, because
Yeah,
there's so many different people here. I've met people, all people from all over the world come to London, and you know, I've met people from all over the world here, and it really helps to enrich your life and gives you so many, I think, lessons that you can learn from.
really does, especially if they're first generation over here as well. They always bring the best recipes with them.
That's definitely true. Yeah. Are you a good cook yourself, being a big from an Italian family?
Yes, yeah, I live alone, so I have to cook all my meals. I mean, my mum and my dad, in true Italian fashion, I can see their house from my bedroom window. So, you know, if I get fed up with the cooking, I just nip over there. But yeah, I mean, it's something I actually said to my mum yesterday, was we need to eat more Italian food again. We've been here for so long that we do eat a lot of British food now, which is fine, but you miss that cultural side of it. So whenever we have gone back in the past, it's so nice to get all that Italian, Sicilian cultural food again in front of you.
I can imagine, and oh, that food sounds amazing right now.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. So wrapping things up, I always like to ask people, where are you going next?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier I would love to go to Korea next. I mean, obviously I'll have to wait until their 2 week quarantine is up. I mean, I'd probably happily do it if I had the funds, but I'm predominantly more of a budget traveler than a luxury traveler. So I don't want to end up somewhere for 2 weeks quarantining and then have to have another 2 weeks on top. But yeah, Korea or older China, rather, I'd like to see new and old China. But yeah, those areas I think are definitely high up on my bucket list next.
Nice, nice. Yeah, definitely good places to go. Um, but are you thinking maybe a staycation this year?
Yeah, probably. I think Scotland's quite high up on my list as well, but I know they've got different rules than we have in England. So So yeah, and that's drivable, even though it's quite a long distance. So yeah, that would probably be maybe one of the first trips that I would take would be in a car driving up to Scotland.
Scotland's got some beautiful places to see, especially around the kind of the Highlands and where all the lochs are. So no, that sounds like a good trip to substitute international travel for now.
Yeah, temporary substitution, yeah, but a good one.
Definitely, definitely. Cool. So thank you so much, Claudia, for speaking to us today. Really enjoyed listening to your experiences and some great advice there, especially for any budding female travelers looking to go out on their own for the first time. So thank you so much for sharing
You're
sharing
welcome. Thank you so
that.
much for having me.
Oh yeah, no worries at all. And everyone should definitely go check you out on Instagram and go check out your blog. So if you could just tell everyone they can find you on Instagram again, please.
Yeah, so my Instagram is PerfectlyClaudia and the blog is the same as well.
Cool. And yeah, everyone definitely go check out Claudia's stuff because some great content over there. Cool. So thanks you so much for listening, everyone, and we will catch you in the next one.